I think leadership in PR for me means several things. One is a leader is really connected. I think in today's world, things are moving, extremely fast. 24/7 is the news cycle, but beyond that, just our daily experience is really, really fast-paced. So I think a successful leader is connected beyond just his or her industry, but is actually well aware of things that are happening beyond his or her current client or brand responsibilities. They're connected within that industry, but also what's happening not only in the news cycle, but what's happening in the sports world, entertainment, political activity that's taking place around the world. All of those are going to have an influence on how he or she leads. And I think if this individual works in a vacuum and isn't connected, they can make potentially disastrous or dangerous decisions for their client without the intention of that, but it's really critical to be connected. And when you are connected and you're aware of the larger happenings in the world and what's happening, I think you can make some really incredible decisions for your client that's going to take them to the next level. I think an excellent leader in public relations is clearly a visionary. We live in a very fast-paced world, and a visionary is one that can kind of cut through the clutter and the noise and really have, again, a clear vision for their client. Another important leadership quality in a public relations person, I've always respected leaders in my work experience that have been what I would call a doer. I really expect those leaders that are getting into the trenches, working with the teams, not only leading and guiding the groups as a leader would do, but when they're working alongside you, I think that's when you gain the respect of your colleagues and your teams. And before you know it, in my experience when I've worked with good leaders, they may be alongside you and part of that process, and next thing you know, you're actually leading on your own. They've instilled great confidence in you, and you're able to move forward. So I respect that in leaders that get in there and do the work with you and then allow you to fly out on your own. One of the characteristics of a public relations leader that really sticks out to me is the individual that explains the why. I think it's really important for a leader to explain why they're asking their team to do something. People will do what they're asked in a working relationship, most usually, and if they're going to be successful. But a true leader will explain the why it is that we're doing something, why it's important, why this makes a difference for the client. And when you're taught those things, given the fast pace in which our communications world works today, the individual then is able to act on their own. They're learning those skills that allows them to have the confidence and the ability to move forward and make decisions. So much like teaching an individual to fish versus providing the fish, I think a really good leader explains to the team thoroughly why something is being done and allows for questions and allows for the individuals to poke around a little bit and find out why those decisions are being made. But ultimately, with that knowledge, they're able then to go on and make decisions themselves that are going to be the right ones. There's a couple of things that I think young PR professionals can do to gain leadership experience. And one of those is to engage. I really encourage people to get involved in their communities, engage with various committees or task force that might be offered either on campus or in their first job or two out of school. I think by engaging in other activities and interacting with other people, you learn a lot. You learn a lot about yourself and you learn where your skill sets are, but you also have the chance to learn from other people. So I really think that's an important skill set. I think volunteering, I really look favorably upon those that like to get out and get involved in their community, whatever that cause or issue might be. I think it's important for people to get out. As it relates to a public relations industry, they're developing empathy and skills in terms of interacting with other people in their community, so I think that's really a strong suit for people to get out and do that as well. A book that I would recommend on leadership, I think it's a little atypical in terms of leadership books, but it's titled Leaving Microsoft to Change the World, and it's written by John Wood. And Room to Read is the organization that he launched, and the book is all about how that organization got started. And Ketchum, the agency that I work for, adopted Room to Read as our pro bono partner 6 years ago now. And in an early part of our partnership, I had the chance to read the book, and I've since shared it with many, many people. But it talks about how he was working for Microsoft, had traveled on a vacation to Nepal, and came across a classroom that did not have any books, and he couldn't believe that that was possible. And in speaking with the schoolmaster said, we're poor, we can't afford books here, and the reality is we'll always be poor if we're not able to get access to books. So John took it upon himself to go back to his home base and did a book drive, and in the end collected thousands of books that were then delivered by Yak, by he and his dad the following year. And following that experience, he felt that he could not go back to Microsoft, that he had found his true calling, and has since built up an organization that has now reached nearly 10 million children in Africa and Asia. And so in reading that book, I think there are very strong ideas and inspiration for potential leaders, because he took a risk. He left the familiarity of his own working experience, but was drawn by his passions to do something and to make a difference. So I think anyone would enjoy reading that book. My advice to students just entering the workforce in their first job out of school are a few things. One, work hard. Don't be afraid of hard work. I think that hard work is really recognized and appreciated by others. Always being present, not skipping out right at 5 o'clock, but actually doing the work until it's done. It really makes a positive mark. And to that point, my other tip would be always meet your deadlines or beat them. I think early out, that's one of the most important things that you can do in terms of just proving yourself. So if you're able to meet and beat your deadlines and you're working hard, that's going to go a long way. And with that, being engaged, again, just volunteering, asking questions, going beyond what's assigned to you as your job or your responsibilities, being curious, roaming the halls at your new office and talking with people, finding out what it is that they do on a daily, day-to-day work experience and how you might learn from them as well. So my tips would be to just really actively engage and prove yourself early on. If I was hiring a young PR professional today, a couple of things that I would look at would be experience. And that doesn't need to be traditional public relations internship experience, although that's certainly valued. I think students have the opportunity to get in and do some internship experience. In my personal experience, I wanted to make sure public relations was for me. And so I participated in 4 internships, 2 of which were in PR agencies and others were public relations jobs outside of that. And it gave me the confidence in applying for jobs that this was definitely the field of work that I wanted to go in. However, when I'm looking at resumes or talking to potential candidates, public relations experience is definitely a draw and of interest to me to know what they might have learned in their recent experience. But I'm also curious to hear what they might have done outside of that, even work experience. I think people can learn a lot of skills that are applicable to the world of public relations just through their work. Again, I think about personally, I was working for a beach resort for a number of years before I went into the workforce, the official workforce. And in doing so, learned about guest relations, making sure that we were thinking 1 or 2, 3 steps ahead of our guests, making sure that we were just there for their needs. And I think that really helped from a client service perspective. And so I learned from potential candidates about the work that they've done, camp counselors, individuals that have helped their family businesses, whatever it might be. I think there are key learnings from that can be applied to their future position. Second to that would be enthusiasm. So I look at experience just to see what it is that they've done and why they've been drawn to the work experience they've had, and ask a lot of questions about why they went that direction and what they learned. But enthusiasm really comes through, real enthusiasm. It's not something that you can fake. but I really appreciate sitting across from an individual who is excited about the potential of the job and about their experience to date, and are ready to learn, ready to jump in. So I can tell that enthusiasm just by their body language, by the types of questions that they're asking, the questions that they're asking me, and that their answers to the questions I'm asking them. So I think those two, experience and enthusiasm, the double E's, can really set up a candidate for a really solid interview. There are two things I do on a regular basis that I think helps further my leadership skills. One of them is engage. I really make a point to engage with the world around me. I have the opportunity to walk to work every day, and through that I get the chance to walk through different neighborhoods of San Francisco. I may choose to go through Chinatown or North Beach, which is our Italian part of the city. And just by walking around different parts, being inspired by different things, overhearing different things, smelling different things, all of that kind of sets me up for a different perspective by the time I get to work. And engaging beyond that from a physical experience and walking into the office, engaging with others. I really enjoy a lot of volunteer activities that I do in San Francisco. I engage with all types of media. I devour as much media as I can on a regular basis, and not just my go-to favorites, but I think it's important to get perspectives from a number of different sources. And I also make sure to connect with my team. And that goes well beyond email. I think we kind of work in a system where the go-to form of communication is email. It's quick and it's easy, but when I find myself emailing a colleague that is just down the hallway, I make a point to get up from my desk and go down and communicate with him or her. And I think that's really important from a leadership perspective. For me, it shows that I'm accessible. It's not, again, an electronic form of communication, but a lot of times that face-to-face time allows for us to really kind of dig deep into the challenges that they might be facing in their current assignments, and it allows us to kind of talk through and really get to the bottom of it. And lastly, I would say, from a leadership perspective, I think it's really important to celebrate victories together. I want to make sure that my team knows that we're in it together. When we fail and when we succeed, we learn from our mistakes, but we also are there to celebrate the victories together, because we know that it's important for all of us to play a part of that. And I think in the fast-paced world that we live in, and certainly on the agency side of public relations and things moving so fast, it's easy to let those moments slip by. And I certainly make a point to make sure that it's punctuated and that we have a time to celebrate. My leadership tip is to identify leaders inside your industry and outside of your industry and follow them, whether it's following their tweets, following their Facebook, watching out for interviews that they might be participating in. I think we can always learn from other leaders. My mentorship tip is get one, get two, get three, get as many mentors in your professional life as possible. I had mentors early on in my career through the internship stage, and continue to have mentors to this day, and they have helped make my career advancement and my professional life all the more pleasurable and successful. My networking tip is to go beyond the public relations circle. Network with people outside of the industry. Join groups, whether it's individuals that work in the environment, individuals in advertising, individuals in business, engineering. When you have the opportunity and are living in a city where you can join other networking circles, I think it's important to connect with those outside of your industry and push outside your comfort zone. You'll learn a lot. Every leader is human. Let's not forget that. I think we get sometimes wrapped up in the idea of a leader and putting them on a pedestal, but at the end of the day, all leaders are human, and as such, it allows us the opportunity to interact with them on a more human level. The lesson that took me the longest to learn is probably that we continue to learn every single day. I think early on in my career, I thought I'd get to a point where I wouldn't necessarily have learned it all, but I would have learned enough. And what I've learned, especially in the fast pace of communications and public relations today, is that there's opportunities to learn something every single day, and to lose sight of that, you actually miss out on the game.